Hi poetry lovers, welcome to my channel Bella Poetry Presents. In our sixth segment of the third series, The Best Russian Poets of the Silver Age, we will talk about a short but very eventful life of another Russian Silver Age poet, Vladimir Mayakovsky. Vladimir Mayakovsky was born in 1893 in Baghdadi, Georgia, then part of the Russian Empire. He was born to a housewife whose name was Alexandra, and Vladimir Mayakovsky, a local forester. His father belonged to a noble family. Vladimir had two sisters, Olga and Ludmila. He also had a brother, Konstantin, who unfortunately passed away at the age of 3. The family was of Russian and Cossack descent on their father's side and Ukrainian on their mother's. At home, the family spoke Russian. With his friends and at school, Mayakovsky spoke Georgian. I was born in Caucasus. My father is a Cossack. My mother is Ukrainian. My mother's tongue is Georgian. Thus, 3 cultures are united in me, he told the Prague newspaper in his 1927 interview. In 1902, Mayakovsky joined the Kutaisi Gymnasium. Later, a 14-year-old took a part in socialist demonstrations in the town of Kutaisi. His mother, aware of his activities, apparently did not object to them. His father suddenly died in 1906, which prompted his mother to pick up her family and move to Moscow. Mayakovsky was then only 13 years old. In July 1906, Mayakovsky joined the Moscow Classic Gymnasium and soon developed a passion for Marxist literature. There'd be no higher art for me than the foreword by Marx, he recalled in 1920s in his autobiography, I, Myself. In 1907, Mayakovsky became a member of the Gymnasium underground social democrat circle, taking part in numerous activities of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, which he, given the nickname Comrade Konstantin, joined the same year. In 1908, the boy was dismissed from the gymnasium because his mother was no longer able to pay or to afford the tuition fees. For 2 years, he studied at the Stroganov School of Industrial Arts, where his sister Ludmila had started her studies a few years earlier. As a young Bolshevik activist, Mayakovsky distributed propaganda leaflets, possessed a pistol without a permit, and in 1909 he got involved in smuggling political activists out of prison, and this resulted in his 11-month imprisonment. It was in solitary confinement in Moscow prison that Mayakovsky started writing verse for the first time. Revolution and poetry got entangled in my head and became one, he wrote in his autobiography, I, Myself. He always cited the year 1909 as the year when his literary career started. Upon his release from prison, Mayakovsky remained an ardent socialist, but realized his own inadequacy as a serious revolutionary. Having left the party, he concentrated on his education. Now my intention was to make the socialist art, he later remembered. In 1911, Mayakovsky enrolled in the art school. In September 1911, he had a brief encounter that almost ended in a fight with another student whose name was David Burluk. And this type of encounter led to a lasting friendship and had historic consequences for the upcoming Russian futurist movement. Mayakovsky became an active member and soon a spokesman for the group Gilead, which sought to free the arts from academic traditions. Its members would read poetry in the street corners, throw tea at their audiences, and make public appearance as the annoyance to the art establishment. Burliuk, on hearing Mayakovsky verses, declared him a genius poet. "It was Burliuk who turned me into a poet," Mayakovsky wrote in I Myself. "He read the French and German to me. He pressed books on me. He would come and talk endlessly. He didn't let me get away. He would subsidize me with 50 kopecks each day, so I'd write and not go hungry." On November 17, 1912, Mayakovsky made his first public appearance on the stage of Stray Dog. Stray Dog was an artistic basement in St. Petersburg where many poets appeared and read their poetry. In December of that year, his first published poems, Night, Ночь in Russian, and Morning, Утро, appeared in the Futurist Manifesto, a slap in the face of public taste. It was signed by Mayakovsky and other poets, calling, among the other things, for throwing Pushkin, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, etc., off the steamboat of modernity. In 1913, Mayakovsky's first poetry collection called Ya came out. Its original limited edition, 300 copies lithographically printed. In December 1913, Mayakovsky, along with his fellow Futurist group members, embarked on a Russian tour. It took them to 17 cities. The audiences went wild, and often the police stopped the readings. The poets dressed outlandishly, and Mayakovsky, a regular scandal maker, in his own words, used to appear on stage in a self-made yellow shirt, which became a token of his early stage appearances. The tour ended on April 13, 1914 in Kaluga and cost Mayakovsky and Burliuk their education. Both were expelled from the art school, their public appearances deemed incompatible with the school's academic principles. But suddenly luck struck, and Mayakovsky won 65 rubles in a lottery, which was a lot of money for him. And in May 1914, Mayakovsky went to Kokala near Petrograd. Here he put the finishing touches on his famous poem, A Cloud in the Trousers. He sat for the painting session with Ilya Repin, who was a very famous Russian artist. And he also met Maxim Gorky, a very famous Russian writer, for the first time. As World War began, Mayakovsky volunteered, but was rejected as politically unstable and unreliable. In the summer of 1915, Mayakovsky moved to Petrograd. Subsequently, Maxim Gorky invited the poet to work for his journal that was called Letopis in Russian manuscript. Mayakovsky met husband and wife Osip and Lily Brick in July 1915 at their dacha in Malakhovo near Moscow. Soon after that, Lily's sister Elsa, who had a brief love affair with the poet, invited him to the Bricks Petrograd flat. The couple at the time, Osip and Lila Brick, did not show any interest in literature. They were very successful coral traders. That evening, Mayakovsky recited the yet unpublished poem A Cloud in Trousers and announced it as dedicated to the hostess. He proclaimed, "For you, Lila." According to Lila Briggs' memoirs, her husband also fell in love with the poet. I don't think it was a romantic love, but he just was in love with his talent, with his persona. And she said, "How could I have possibly failed to fall for him if Osa loved him so?" And she also commented upon her relationship with Mayakovsky. She said, "Volodya did not merely fall in love with me, he attacked me. It was an assault. For 2.5 years, I didn't have a moment's peace. I understood right away that Volodya was a genius, but I didn't like him. I didn't like glamorous people. I didn't like the fact that he was so tall and people in the street would stare at him. I was annoyed that he enjoyed listening to his own voice. I couldn't even stand the name Mayakovsky, sounding so much like a cheap pen name." Both Mayakovsky's persistent adoration and rough appearance irritated her. It was allegedly to please her that Mayakovsky went to a dentist to fix his teeth, started to wear a bow tie, and used a walking stick. Soon after, Osip Breg helped publish A Cloud in Trousers. It was in September 1915. Mayakovsky settled in the Royal Palace, in the Palace Royal Hotel at Pushkinskaya Street, Petrograd, not far from where the couple lived. He introduced the couple to his Futurist friends, and the Briggs flat quickly evolved into a modern literary salon. From then on, Mayakovsky was dedicating every one of his large poems, except for his very long poem called Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, to Lila. Mayakovsky embraced the Bolshevik Russian Revolution with a whole heart for a while. Even he worked in Smoly, Petrograd, where he met Vladimir Lenin, the father of the October Revolution. In November 1917, he took part in the Communist Central Committee's sanctioned assembly of writers, painters, and theater directors who expressed their allegiance to the new political regime. In 1918, Mayakovsky starred in 3 silent movies made at the Neptune Studios in Petrograd. He wrote scripts for all 3 movies. In March 1919, Mayakovsky moved back to Moscow, where Vladimir Mayakovsky collected works written from 1909 to 1919 was released. The same month, he started working for the Russian state telegraph agency, Rosta, creating both graphic and text satirical agitprop posters aimed mostly at informing the country's largely illiterate population of the current events. A vigorous spokesman for the Communist Party, Mayakovsky expressed himself in many ways. In summer 1918, soon after Lila and Vladimir starred in the film together, titled Encased in a Film, Mayakovsky and the Briggs moved in together, which was a little strange. In March 1919, all 3 came to Moscow, and in 1920 settled in a flat at the Kondrikov Lane, Taganka. In 1920, Mayakovsky had a brief romance with Lila Lavinskaya, who was an artist. She gave birth to a son, Gleb Nikita Lavinsky, who later became a famous Soviet sculptor. Breg and Mayakovsky's relationship ended in 1923, but the pair never separated really. In 1926, Mayakovsky was granted a state-owned flat at the Gendrikov Lane in Moscow. So all three of them, Osip, Lila, and Mayakovsky, moved in together and lived there until his death in 1930. Mayakovsky continued to profess his devotion to Lila, who by now he considered a family member. However, the poet's sister Lyudmila regarded her as an insensitive femme fatale and cynical manipulator who had never been really interested in either Mayakovsky or his poetry. In May 1922, Mayakovsky went abroad for the first time, visiting Riga, Berlin, and Paris, where he was invited to the studios of Picasso. Several books, including the West and Paris cycles, written in 1922 to 1925, were created as a result. In October 1924, he gave numerous public readings of the 3,000-line epic Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, written on the death of the Soviet communist leader. Next February, this long poem, came out as a book. In May 1925, Mayakovsky's second trip took him to several European cities. Then he went to the United States, Mexico, and Cuba. His book of essays, My Discovery of America, came out later that year. In summer 1925, in New York, Mayakovsky met a Russian immigrant, Allie Jones, who was born Elizaveta Zilbert, an interpreter who spoke Russian, French, German, and English fluently. They fell in love. For 3 months they were absolutely inseparable, but decided to keep their affair secret. Soon after the poet's return to the Soviet Union, Ali gave birth to his daughter Patricia. Mayakovsky only saw the girl once, in 1928, when she was 3 years old. In 1928, in Paris, Mayakovsky met a Russian immigrant, Tatiana Yakovleva, a 22-year-old beautiful model working for the Chanel fashion house, and the niece of painter Alexander Yakovlev. He fell in love with her madly, as he commonly did with other women, and wrote 2 poems dedicated to her: Letter to Comrade Kostrov on the Essence of Love, and Letter to Tatiana Yakovleva. Mayakovsky tried to persuade Tatiana Yakovleva to return to Russia, but she refused. In late 1929, he made an attempt to travel to Paris in order to marry her, but was refused a visa for the first time. In the late 1920s, Mayakovsky had an affair with another woman, Veronika Polonskaya. She was an actress, and she was a wife of an actor, Mikhail Yanshin. It was Veronika's unwillingness to divorce Yanshin that resulted in her frequent fights with Mayakovsky, the last of which preceded the poet's suicide. Yet some biographers said that it was actually not Polonskaya but Yakovleva that Mayakovsky was pining for. We'll never know. It was Lila, it was Polonskaya, it was Yakovleva, and probably other women. In 1929, the publishing house Goslitizdat released the works by Vladimir Mayakovsky in 4 volumes. In September 1929, the poet's relationship with the Soviet establishment was quickly deteriorating, and he was increasingly losing favor with the Soviet government and the Communist Party. On April 12, 1930, Mayakovsky was seen in public for the last time. On April 14, 1930, his current partner, the married actress Veronika Polonskaya, was in his flat. They had a big fight. She left the flat, and upon leaving, she heard a loud shot behind a closed door. She rushed in, and she found her lover lying on the floor Vladimir Mayakovsky apparently shot himself through the heart. The handwritten note said, "To all of you, I die, but don't blame anyone for it, and please do not gossip. The deceased disliked that sort of thing terribly. Mother, sister, comrades, forgive me. This is not a good method. I do not recommend it to others. But there is no other way out for me. Lily, love me. Comrade government, my family consists of Lily Brigg, Mama, my sisters, and Veronica Polonskaya. If you can provide a decent life for them, thank you. Give my poems I started to Briggs. They will sort it out." Mayakovsky's funeral on April 17, 1930 was attended by around 150,000 people, the third largest event of public mourning in Soviet history, surpassed only by the funerals of Lenin and Stalin. After Mayakovsky's death, the Association of Proletarian Writers' leadership made sure that the publications of the poet's work were cancelled and his very name stopped being mentioned in the Soviet press. Lily Brigg could not tolerate that. In 1935, she wrote a letter to Joseph Stalin, and she challenged her opponents, asking personally the Soviet leader for help. The effect of this letter was startling. Mayakovsky was instantly hailed as Soviet classic, proving to be the only member of the artistic avant-garde of the early 20th century to enter the Soviet mainstream. His birthplace of Baghdadi in Georgia was renamed Mayakovsky in his honor. And in 1938, the Mayakovskaya metro station was opened to the public. In 1974, the Russian State Museum of Mayakovsky opened the doors in the centers of Moscow, in the building where Mayakovsky resided from 1919 until his death in 1930. The raging bull of Russian poetry, the wizard of rhyming, an individualist and a rebel against established taste and standards, Mayakovsky is seen by many in Russia as a giant rebel of the 20th century Russian literature. And so now we will read a couple of his poems. His poetry is not very easy to read, but I will try to do my best. So first I'll read it to you in English and then in Russian. The first poem is titled "But Could You?" I blurred at once the map of humdrum by splashing colors like a potion. I showed upon the dish of jelly the slanted cheekbones of the ocean. Upon the scales of metal fishes, I read the new lips' attitude. But could you now perform a nocturne, just playing on a drain pipe flute? Translated by D. Smirnov-Sadovsky. And the same poem in Russian. Я сразу смазал карту будня, плеснувши краску из стакана. Я показал на блюде студня косые скулы океана. На чешуе жестяной рыбы прочел я зовы новых губ. А вы, ноктюрн, сыграть могли бы на флейте водосточный труб. And I also wanted to read to you a poem dedicated to Lila Brigg, who was a very important persona in the life of Mayakovsky. The poem is called Lilichka. Tobacco smoke eats the air away, the room a chapter from Kruchenik's Inferno. Recall, by the window that day, I caressed you ecstatically with fervor. Here you sit now, with your heart in an iron armor. In a day you'll scold me perhaps, and tell me to leave. Frenzied, the trembling arm in the gloomy parlor will hardly be able to fit in a sleeve. I'll rush out and hurl my body into the street, distraught, lashed by despair and sadness. There is no need for this, my darling, my sweet. Let's part tonight and end this madness. Either way, my love is an arduous weight, hanging on you wherever you flee. Let me bellow out in the final complaint all of my heartbroken misery. A laboring bull, it had enough. Will leave and find cool water to lie in, but for me there is no sea except for your love, from which even tears won't earn me some quiet. If an elephant wants to relax, he'll lie pampas outside in the sun-baked dune. Except for your love, there is no sun in the sky, so I don't even know where you are and with whom. If you thus tormented another poet, he would trade in his love for money and fame, but nothing sounds as precious to me as the ringing sound of your darling name. I won't think poison or jump to demise or pull the trigger to take my own life, except for your eyes. No blade can control me, no sharpened knife. Tomorrow you'll forget that it was I who crowned you, who burned out the blossoming soul with love. And the days will form a whirling carnival that will ruffle my manuscripts and lift them above, with the dry leaves of my sentences cause you to pause, breathing hard. Let me pave a path with a final tenderness for your footsteps as you depart. And the translation is done by my favorite translator of Russian poetry, Andrei Neller, and in Russian, Lilichka. Дым табачный, воздух выел, комната, глава в Крученовском аде, Крученовском аде. Вспомни за этим окном впервые, руки твои иступленный гладил. Сегодня сидишь вот, сердце в железе, день еще выгонишь, может быть, из ругав, в мутной передней долго не влезет, сломанная дрожью рука в рукав. Выбегу, тело в улицу брошу я, дикий обезумлюсь, отчаянием, и сейчас не надо этого, дорогая, хорошая. Дай простимся сейчас. Все равно любовь моя такая же гиря ведь, тяжкая гиря ведь, висит на тебе, куда ни бежал бы. Дай в последнем крике выреветь горечь обиженных жалоб. Если бы трудом уморят, он уйдет, разлежится в холодных водах. Кроме любви твоей мне нету моря, а у любви твоей и плачем не вымолишь отдых. Захочет покоя уставший слон, царственный ляжет по пожаренном песке. Кроме любви твоей мне нету солнца, а я и не знаю, где ты и с кем. Если б так поэта измучила, он любимую на деньги и славу выменял, а мне ни один не радостен звон, кроме звона твоего любимого имени. И в пролет не брошусь, и не выпью яда, и курок не смогу над виском нажать. Надо мною, кроме твоего взгляда, не властно лезвие ни одного ножа. Завтра забудешь, что тебя короновал, что душу цветущую любовью выжег, и суетных дней взметанный карнавал растреплет страницы моих книжек. Слов моих сухие листья заставят остановиться, жадно дыша. Дай хоть последней нежностью выстелить твой уходящий шаг. This long and very difficult poem was written in 1916, dedicated to his love, Lila Brick. And with this poem, we bring this segment of Bella Poetry Presents to the end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story of Vladimir Mayakovsky and his kind of very rough and angular poetry. In our next segment, we will discuss a very interesting, also short life of another wonderful Russian poet of Silver Age, Sergei Yesenin. Please join us. Please don't forget also to like and subscribe. Your support is extremely important to us. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye.